Captain Jack Morrison stared at the star map display on his ship's bridge. The bright blue dots showed where they were supposed to be. The red warning lights told him they were somewhere else entirely. His hands gripped the command chair as he tried to make sense of what had gone wrong. "Lisa, how far off course are we?" Jack asked his pilot. Lisa Carter turned from her control panel. Her face was pale. "I don't know, Captain. The navigation system is showing coordinates that don't match anything in our star charts. We're in completely unknown space." Jack walked over to the engineering station where Danny Walsh was working. Sparks flew from an open panel as Danny pulled out burned circuits. "What happened to our jump drive?" "The new navigation system overloaded during the hyperspace jump," Danny said. "It pulled us way off our planned route." "I've never seen anything like it." The power surge was massive. Kevin Brown looked up from his communications station. "Captain, I'm picking up some strange signals. They're not from any known human or alien frequencies. The signals are heavily encrypted." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. They were supposed to be on a simple mapping mission near the edge of known space. Now they were lost in a sector that didn't exist on any map. "Put the signals on speaker, Kevin." The bridge filled with electronic sounds and alien voices speaking in languages none of them recognized. The voices sounded urgent, almost desperate. Jack listened carefully, trying to pick out any patterns in the strange communication. "There's something else, Captain," Kevin said. "I'm detecting a massive structure about 2 million kilometers away. It's huge, bigger than anything I've ever seen." Jack moved to the main viewing screen. "Show me." The screen flickered and then displayed an image that made everyone on the bridge gasp. An enormous artificial structure orbited a dying red star. The structure was dark and metallic, with thousands of lights scattered across its surface. It looked like a city in space, but there was something wrong about it. The design was cold and prison-like. "My God," Lisa whispered. "What is that thing?" Jack studied the structure carefully. It was clearly not human-made, but it also didn't match any known alien architecture. The surface was covered with what looked like towers and walls. Long corridors connected different sections. It reminded him of the maximum security prisons he had seen on Earth, but on a scale that was hard to believe. "Kevin, can you break the encryption on those signals?" "I'm trying, Captain." "The encryption is very advanced, but I think I can crack it with some time." Jack nodded. "Do it, Danny. I want full power to our sensors. Scan that structure and tell me everything you can about it." For the next hour, the crew worked in silence. Jack paced the bridge, thinking about their situation. They were lost in unknown space with a damaged navigation system. Their ship, the New Horizon, was well equipped for exploration, but it was not designed for combat. If whatever built that structure was hostile, they would be in serious trouble. "Got it," Kevin suddenly shouted. "I've broken through the encryption." "Captain, you need to hear this." The alien voices on the speaker suddenly became clear. Jack could understand them now through the translation system. What he heard made his blood freeze. "Containment Facility Omega-7 reports all sectors secure. Prisoner count remains stable at 47,812 individuals." "Understood, Omega-7. The Council requires monthly reports on all high-priority prisoners. Any signs of resistance activity must be reported immediately." "No resistance activity detected." The pacification protocols continue to be effective. The prisoners remained docile. Jack felt sick. They had found a prison. Not just any prison, but one that held almost 50,000 beings. The scale was beyond anything he could have imagined. "There's more, Captain," Kevin said. "I'm picking up data transmissions about the prisoners. They're from dozens of different species. Many have been there for decades, some for over a century." "A century?" Lisa asked. "What could they have done to deserve that?" Jack studied the data flowing across Kevin's screen. The information was written in several alien languages, but the translation system was slowly making sense of it. What he read made him angry. The prisoners were not criminals in any normal sense. They were described as political dissidents, resistance leaders, and individuals possessing the spark. The files talked about their dangerous ability to inspire others and their threat to established order. "This is insane," Jack said. "They're imprisoning people for being leaders, for inspiring others." Danny looked up from his repairs. "Captain, there's something else. I'm detecting human life signs in that structure." Jack spun around. "Humans? That's impossible. We're the first human ship to reach this sector. The signatures are definitely human," Danny confirmed. "At least a dozen, maybe more. They're all in the high security section." Jack felt a chill. If there were humans in that prison, it meant someone had been capturing his people. The thought made him furious. "Kevin, dig deeper into those files. I want to know everything about the human prisoners." Kevin's fingers flew over his controls. "I'm accessing the prisoner database now. Captain, this is unbelievable. According to these records, humans have been classified as a high-risk species by something called the Galactic Council." "High risk for what?" "Natural tendency toward independence and resistance to authority." The files say humans have an unusually high percentage of individuals who possess the spark the Council considers humanity a potential threat to galactic stability. Jack read the files over Kevin's shoulder. The documents described how the Council had been secretly monitoring human space for years. They had identified and captured humans who showed leadership potential, especially those involved in exploration and first contact missions. "Look at this," Kevin said, pointing to a recent entry. 3 years ago, a human diplomatic mission to the Council disappeared. The official report said they were killed in a space accident. But according to these files, they were captured and brought here. Jack clenched his fists. The Council had been lying to humanity while secretly kidnapping their people. The diplomatic mission had been led by some of Earth's best and brightest. Now they were rotting in this prison, forgotten by the galaxy. "There's more," Kevin continued. "The Council is planning something called Operation Pacification for Earth. They want to remove all potential leaders from human society and install a puppet government. The timeline shows they plan to act within the next few months." Jack felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. They had stumbled onto something massive. Something that threatened not just the prisoners in this facility, but all of humanity. The Council wasn't just running a prison. They were reshaping the galaxy by eliminating anyone who might challenge their authority. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "what do we do?" Jack looked at his crew. They were good people, brave and loyal, but they were just 4 humans in a small ship, facing an enemy that controlled much of the galaxy. The smart thing would be to leave, to run back to Earth and warn everyone about the Council's plans, but Jack couldn't stop thinking about the human prisoners trapped in that facility. They had been abandoned by their own species, left to rot. In alien cells? As a captain, he had a duty to protect human lives. As a human being, he couldn't leave his people behind. "We're going to take a closer look at that prison," Jack said. "If there are humans in there, we're going to find them. And we're going to learn everything we can about this Council and their plans." "Captain," Danny said, "our ship isn't equipped. For a rescue mission, that facility is heavily defended." "Then we'll have to be smart about it," Jack replied. "Kevin, I want you to monitor all their communications. Danny, prepare our stealth systems. Lisa, plot a course that keeps us hidden from their sensors." Jack returned to his command chair and stared at the prison facility on the screen. Somewhere in that dark structure, humans were being held prisoner for the crime of being leaders. The Council thought they could control the galaxy by eliminating anyone who might inspire others to resist. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Jack Morrison watched the prison facility grow larger on the main screen as their ship moved closer. The stealth systems were working perfectly, hiding them from the alien sensors. But Jack knew they were taking a huge risk. One mistake could get them all killed or captured. "How close can we get without being detected?" Jack asked Lisa. "Maybe 5,000 kilometers, she replied. "Any closer and their sensors might pick us up even with stealth active." Jack nodded. "That we'll have to do, Kevin. What have you learned from their communications?" Kevin turned from his station. The prison is divided into 12 sectors. Each sector holds different types of prisoners based on how dangerous the council thinks they are. The humans are in Sector 7, which is marked as maximum security. Maximum security for what? Being human, Danny asked angrily. According to the files, yes, Kevin answered. The council believes humans are naturally rebellious. They think we're a threat to their control over the galaxy. Jack studied the data on his screen. The prison was massive, with thick walls and energy shields protecting each sector. Guard towers were positioned at regular intervals and armed. Patrols moved through the corridors constantly. Breaking in would be almost impossible. There has to be a way in, Jack said. No prison is perfect. Look for maintenance tunnels, waste disposal systems, anything that might give us access. Denny worked at his engineering station. I'm scanning the outer hull. There are several service ports that look like they might be used for supplies and maintenance. They're heavily secured, but our cutting tools might be able to get through. How long would it take? Maybe an hour to cut through the outer hull? But once we're inside, we'll be on their internal sensors. Jack thought about their options. They needed to get inside the prison, find the human prisoners, and learn more about the council's plans. But they also needed to get out alive with that information. Kevin, can you create a distraction? Something to draw their attention away from the service ports? I could try to jam their communications in one sector. That might make them think. There's a problem there. Do it. Danny, prepare the cutting tools. Lisa, take us to the closest service port. We're going in. The next hour passed slowly. Jack put on his environmental suit and checked his weapons. The others did the same. They carried only basic equipment, cutting tools, scanners, and small energy weapons. Against the prison's security forces, they would have to rely on stealth and surprise. I'm reading an opening in the outer hull, Danny reported. We're through the first layer of armor. Jack looked at his team. They were scared but determined. Remember, we're looking for information and human prisoners. We avoid combat if possible. If we get separated, meet back at the ship. They moved. Through the service tunnel in single file. The tunnel was narrow and dark, lit only by their helmet lights. The walls were covered with alien writing that their translators couldn't identify. Jack could hear the hum of machinery somewhere ahead. Picking up life signs, Kevin whispered. Lots of them. We're getting close to the prison sections. They reached a junction where the tunnel split in 3 directions. Danny checked his scanner. Sector 7 is to the right. That's where the humans should be. Jack made a decision. Kevin, you stay here and monitor communications. Danny, you're with me. Lisa, watch our backs and be ready to run if things go wrong. Jack and Danny crawled through the tunnel toward Sector 7. The air was thick and smelled of recycled oxygen. Jack could hear voices ahead, speaking in languages he didn't recognize. The sounds echoed off the metal walls. They reached a ventilation grate that looked down into a prison corridor. Jack peered through the grate and saw rows of cells stretching into the distance. The cells were small and dark, with energy barriers instead of doors. Alien guards walked past regularly, carrying weapons that looked very advanced. There, Danny whispered, pointing to a cell about 50 meters away. I see someone in a human uniform. Jack looked where Danny was pointing. A woman sat in one of the cells, wearing what looked like a torn Earth military uniform. She was staring at the wall, looking defeated and exhausted. We need to get closer, Jack said. Can you open this grate? Danny worked quietly with his tools. The grate came loose after a few minutes. Jack dropped down into the corridor as quietly as possible. The woman in the cell looked up when she heard the soft sound of his landing. Her eyes went wide when she saw him. Jack put his finger to his lips and moved closer to her cell. The woman stood up and walked to the energy barrier. Who are you? She whispered, Captain Jack Morrison, Earth Space Command. We're here to help. The woman almost cried with relief. I'm Maya Torres, Lieutenant Commander, Earth Navy. I've been here for 3 years. I thought everyone had forgotten about us. How many humans are in this facility? 17 that I know of, maybe more in other sectors. They captured us during the first diplomatic mission to the Council. They told Earth we were killed in an accident. Jack felt anger building inside him. The Council had been lying to humanity while holding their people prisoner. What do they want from you? Information about Earth's defenses, our technology, our leaders. They're planning something big. They call it Operation Pacification. They want to control Earth without having to fight a war. How can we get you out of here? Maya looked around carefully. The energy barriers are controlled from the guard station at the end of the corridor, but there are too many guards. You'd need a major distraction to get past them. Tell me about the other human prisoners. Are they all in this sector? Most of us are here, but there are others scattered throughout the facility. Commander Alex Stone is in Sector 9. Dr. Rachel Green is in Sector 4. They were taken because the Council thinks they're dangerous leaders. Jack heard footsteps approaching. He quickly climbed back up to the ventilation tunnel where Danny was waiting. They crawled back to the junction where Kevin and Lisa were monitoring the situation. What did you learn? Lisa asked. There are at least 17 human prisoners. They were captured during the diplomatic mission 3 years ago. The Council is using them to learn about Earth's defenses. Kevin looked worried. Captain, I've been listening to their communications. They're planning to increase security tomorrow. If we're going to do something, it has to be tonight. Jack thought about their situation. They had found the human prisoners, but rescuing them would be almost impossible with just 4 people. The prison was too well defended, and they didn't have the weapons or equipment for a major assault. There's something else, Jack said. The woman I talked to mentioned other prisoners from different species. Some have been here for decades. What if this isn't just about humans? Danny nodded. The files mention thousands of prisoners from dozens of species. All of them were leaders or people who inspired others to resist the Council. Think about it, Jack continued. The Council has been doing this for years, maybe centuries. They've been removing anyone who might challenge their authority. They're not just running a prison, they're reshaping the galaxy. Kevin pulled up more data on his scanner. Look at this. The prisoner files show species from all over the galaxy. Some civilizations have been completely wiped out. The Council erased them from history after capturing their leaders. Jack felt the weight of what they had discovered. This wasn't just about rescuing human prisoners. They had found evidence of crimes against entire civilizations. The Council wasn't the benevolent government they claimed to be. They were tyrants who maintained power by eliminating anyone who might inspire others to resist. We can't rescue everyone tonight, Jack said, but we can gather information. If we can get proof of what the Council is doing, we might be able to expose them to the galaxy. How? Lisa asked. We need to access their central database. All the prisoner files, all the evidence of their crimes. If we can get that information back to Earth, we can warn everyone about what's coming. Danny checked his scanner. The central database should be in the administrative section. That's heavily guarded, but it might be easier to access than the prison sectors. Jack made his decision. Kevin, I want you to map out the administrative section. Find us a way to access their computers. Danny, look for any weaknesses in their security systems. Lisa, monitor their patrol patterns. What about the human prisoners? Maya had asked them to help. We're going to help them, but not tonight. First, we need to get the information that can save Earth, then we'll come back for our people. Jack looked at his team. They were tired and scared, but they understood what was at stake. They had stumbled onto something much bigger than a simple prison break. They had found evidence of a conspiracy that threatened the freedom of the entire galaxy. Let's move, Jack said. We have work to do. They crawled back through the ventilation tunnels, heading toward the administrative section. Jack thought about Maya Torres and the other human prisoners. They had been abandoned by their own government, left to rot in alien cells. But they weren't forgotten anymore. Jack was going to make sure the Council paid for their crimes. And he was going to make sure that no one else would have to suffer in their secret prison ever again. Jack Morrison crawled through the ventilation tunnels with his team, heading toward the administrative section of the prison. The metal walls were cold against his environmental suit, and the air smelled like recycled oxygen and fear. Every sound seemed too loud in the narrow space. "Kevin, what's the status on their communication systems?" Jack whispered, "I'm still monitoring their frequencies. The guards are reporting normal activity in all sectors." "They don't know we're here yet." Jack felt a small sense of relief. They had been inside the prison for 2 hours without being detected, but he knew their luck wouldn't last forever. The longer they stayed, the greater the chance of being discovered. Danny's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, I'm reading a large computer terminal ahead. This might be what we're looking for." They reached another ventilation grate that looked down into a room filled with computer screens and data terminals. The room was empty except for one alien guard who was half asleep at his post. Jack studied the layout carefully. "Lisa, can you take out that guard quietly?" "I think so, but we'll have to move fast once he's down." "Other guards might come to check on him?" Jack nodded. "Do it." Lisa dropped down into the room silently. The guard never knew what hit him. She used a sleep device that would keep him unconscious. For hours, Jack and the others followed her down into the room. "Kevin, start accessing their database. I want everything: prisoner files, council communications, evidence of their crimes." Kevin moved to the main terminal and began working. His fingers flew over the alien keyboard as he broke through their security systems. "This is incredible, Captain. They have files on thousands of species. The Council has been doing this for over 300 years. What kind of files?" "Complete records of civilizations they've destroyed or controlled. They identify species that might resist their authority, then they eliminate the leaders and take over the governments." Jack watched the data flow across the screen. The scope of the Council's crimes was beyond anything he had imagined. They hadn't just built a prison, they had built a system for controlling the entire galaxy. "Look at this," Kevin said, pointing to a section of the database. "They have detailed profiles on every prisoner. The Council studies them to understand what makes people into leaders. They're trying to figure out how to prevent resistance before it starts." Danny found another terminal and began accessing it. "Captain, I'm reading about something called the spark. The Council thinks some beings are born with a natural ability to inspire others. They call it the most dangerous trait in the galaxy." "Dangerous to who?" "To their control. According to these files, beings with the spark can unite different species against the Council. That's why they built this prison, to contain everyone who has this ability." Jack felt a chill. The Council wasn't just afraid of rebellion, they were afraid of unity. They had built their power by keeping different species separated and suspicious of each other. Anyone who could bring species together was a threat to their entire system. "Kevin, are you finding anything about Earth?" "Yes, and it's not good. The Council has been studying humanity for years. They think humans have an unusually high percentage of beings with the spark. They consider us the greatest threat they've ever encountered." Jack read the files over Kevin's shoulder. The Council's analysis of humanity was detailed and frightening. They had identified human traits like independence, curiosity, and loyalty as dangerous to their control. They were planning to eliminate these traits from human society. "Operation Pacification," Jack said. "What does it involve?" Kevin pulled up more files. "They're planning to capture or kill every human leader on Earth, politicians, military officers, scientists, even teachers and religious leaders, anyone who might inspire others to resist." "How many people are they talking about?" "Millions. They want to remove anyone who has influence over others. Then they'll install puppet governments that will do whatever the Council wants." Jack felt sick. The Council was planning genocide, but they were doing it in a way that would look like natural political change. They would leave humanity alive but broken, unable to resist their control. "There's more," Danny said from his terminal. "I'm reading about other species that went through pacification. The Council has done this dozens of times. Some species don't even remember they were once free." Lisa was watching the door for guards. "Captain, we need to move faster." I'm hearing footsteps. In the corridor, Jack made a decision. Kevin, can you download all of this data? It's too much information. It would take hours to copy everything. Then copy the most important files. Evidence of their crimes, their plans for Earth, and the location of other prison facilities. Kevin worked frantically while Jack and Danny gathered more information from the other terminals. The database contained details about prison facilities throughout the galaxy. The Council was running a network of secret prisons, each one holding beings who had dared to challenge their authority. "Captain, look at this," Danny said. "Some of the prisoners have been working together. They've been passing messages between sectors, planning some kind of coordinated action." Jack studied the intercepted messages. The prisoners had created a secret communication network using the prison's own systems. They were sharing information about the Council's weaknesses and planning ways to resist. "The humans are part of this network," Danny continued. "Dr. Rachel Green has been working with alien scientists to develop a way to shut down the prisons. Power systems. Can they actually do it? According to these messages, they think so. But they need access to the main power grid, and that's heavily guarded." Jack felt a spark of hope. The prisoners weren't just sitting in their cells waiting to die. They were fighting back, using their combined knowledge and skills to find a way to escape. "Kevin, are you picking up any of these secret messages?" "Yes, I'm intercepting them now. The prisoners are planning something big. They're talking about a coordinated escape attempt." Jack read the messages as they appeared on screen. The prisoners were using coded language, but their meaning was clear. They were preparing to break out of the facility, and they wanted to do it soon. "When?" Jack asked. "Within the next few days." "They're waiting for the right moment when the guards are distracted." Jack realized that they had arrived at a crucial time. The prisoners were already planning to escape, but they would need help to succeed. His small team couldn't rescue everyone, but they might be able to tip the balance in favor of the prisoners. "Captain," Lisa said urgently, "guards are coming. We need to leave now." Kevin grabbed his data storage device. "I got as much as I could. Files on the Council's crimes, their plans for Earth, and the prisoner network." They climbed back up into the ventilation tunnel just as alien guards entered the room below. Jack held his breath as the guards checked their systems and found nothing unusual. The unconscious guard was still sleeping at his post. They crawled back through the tunnels toward their ship. Jack's mind was racing with everything they had learned. The Council wasn't just an alien government. They were a criminal organization that had been controlling the galaxy through fear and violence. "Kevin, those messages from the prisoners, can you establish communication with them?" "I think so. I learned enough about their system to send coded messages." "Do it. Tell them that humans from Earth are here to help. Ask them what they need for their escape plan." Kevin worked on his communicator as they moved through the tunnels. After a few minutes, he got a response. "Captain, I made contact with Dr. Rachel Green. She's one of the human prisoners. She says they've been hoping someone would find them." "What does she need?" "Access to the main power grid. If they can shut it down, all the cell doors will open automatically. But the power grid is in the most heavily guarded part of the facility." Jack thought about their situation. They had 4 people, limited weapons, and no way to fight the prison's security forces directly. But they had something the prisoners didn't have: freedom of movement and the element of surprise. "Tell Dr. Green we'll help them access the power grid, but we need to coordinate our actions carefully." "She's asking about the timing. When can we do this?" Jack looked at his team. They were tired and scared, but they were ready to fight. "Tell her we'll do it tomorrow night. That gives us time to study the facility and plan our approach." Kevin sent the message and waited for a response. "She says the prisoners will be ready. They're asking for one more thing. They want us to transmit their story to the galaxy." "They want everyone to know what the Council has done," Jack nodded. "We'll do that too. The galaxy needs to know the truth about the Council." They reached their ship and climbed aboard. Jack sat in his command chair and looked at the data they had gathered. The prison facility was just one part of a massive conspiracy that had been controlling the galaxy for centuries, but the prisoners inside weren't giving up. They were fighting back, using their combined knowledge and determination to plan an escape that could change everything. Tomorrow night, they would find out if freedom was stronger than the Council's control. "Get some rest," Jack told his crew. "Tomorrow we're going to help 47,000 beings win their freedom." Jack Morrison watched the clock on his ship's bridge. In 30 minutes, they would begin the most dangerous mission of their lives. The prison facility hung in space before them, dark and threatening against the dying red star. "Status report," Jack said to his team. Kevin looked up from his communications station. "I'm in contact with Dr. Rachel Green and the prisoner network. They're ready to move when we give the signal." "Danny, what about the power grid? I've studied the facility's power systems. There's a main control room in the central tower. If we can shut down the primary generators, all the cell doors will open automatically." Lisa checked her pilot controls. "Our ship is ready for a quick escape. But Captain, once we start this, there's no going back. The entire Council fleet will come after us." Jack nodded. He understood the risks. But they couldn't leave 47,000 innocent beings in that prison. "Kevin, send the signal. Tell them we're starting in 5 minutes." The next few minutes passed in tense silence. Jack put on his environmental suit and checked his weapons. The others did the same. They carried more equipment this time, explosives, cutting tools, and better weapons they had taken from their ship's emergency supplies. "Kevin, you stay with the ship and coordinate communications. Danny, Lisa, you're with me. We go in fast and hard." They used the same service tunnel they had used before, but this time they moved with purpose. Jack knew they wouldn't have the luxury of stealth for long. Once the shooting started, every guard in the facility would know they were there. They reached the junction in the tunnels. Jack could hear sounds of movement throughout the prison. The prisoners were getting ready for their part of the escape. "Kevin, what's happening in the prisoner sectors?" "Dr. Green reports they're ready. She's gathered teams of prisoners with different skills. The engineers will work on opening doors, the soldiers will handle security, and the pilots will try to capture Council ships." Jack felt a surge of hope. The prisoners weren't just waiting to be rescued. They were fighting for their own freedom. "Danny, how far to the power control room?" 200 meters through the central corridor." "But Captain, that corridor is heavily guarded." "We'll have to fight our way through." Jack made his decision. "Then we fight." "Kevin, tell the prisoners to start their distraction in Sector 3. That should draw some guards away from the central tower." They dropped down from the ventilation tunnel into a maintenance corridor. The walls were lined with pipes and cables that carried power throughout the facility. Jack could hear the hum of massive generators somewhere below them. "This way," Danny said, leading them toward the central tower. They moved quickly through the empty corridors. The prison was built like a maze, with twisting passages designed to confuse escaped prisoners. But Danny had memorized the layout from the stolen data files. Suddenly, alarm sirens began wailing throughout the facility. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and Jack could hear guards shouting in alien languages. "Kevin, what's happening?" The distraction worked too well. "The prisoners in Sector 3 have broken out of their cells. They're fighting the guards with improvised weapons." Jack felt his heart racing. The escape had begun, but it was happening faster than planned. "Tell Dr. Green to start her part of the plan. We need to reach the power room before the guards figure out what we're really after." They ran through the corridors as the sounds of fighting echoed around them. Jack could hear energy weapons firing and aliens shouting orders. The prison was turning into a battlefield. They reached the central tower and found their way blocked by a heavy security door. Danny immediately began working on it with his cutting tools. But the door was made of advanced materials that resisted their equipment. "How long?" Jack asked. "At least 10 minutes, Danny replied. Jack heard footsteps coming toward them. "We don't have 10 minutes. Kevin, we need another distraction. The prisoners in Sector 7 are breaking out now. Maya Torres is leading a group toward the guard stations." Jack felt proud of the human prisoners. They were fighting back against their captors with courage and determination. But he knew they needed weapons and organization to have any chance of success. "There," Lisa said, pointing to a ventilation shaft above the security door. "We can go around." They climbed up into the shaft and crawled toward the central tower. The metal walls vibrated from explosions somewhere in the prison. Jack could smell smoke and burning electronics. They dropped down into the power control room and found it empty. The guards had been called away to deal with the fighting in other parts of the facility. Jack looked around at the massive control panels that regulated power throughout the prison. "Danny, start working on the main power grid." Lisa watched the door. Danny moved to the main control panel and began connecting his equipment. "This is more complex than I expected. The Council has backup systems and fail-safes built into everything." Jack studied the control room while Danny worked. The walls were covered with monitors showing every part of the prison. He could see prisoners, fighting guards in multiple sectors. The escape was spreading throughout the facility. "Kevin, status report on the prisoner sectors." "Sectors 3 and 7 are completely free. The prisoners are capturing weapons from defeated guards. Dr. Green has broken out of Sector 4 and is leading a group of alien scientists toward the communication center." Jack watched the monitors as more and more prisoners broke free from their cells. They moved with purpose and coordination, following plans they had made over months of secret communication. "Captain," Danny said, "I found something terrible. The Council has a self-destruct system built into this facility. If they lose control, they can destroy the entire prison." Jack felt his blood turn cold. "Can you stop it?" "I'm trying, but it's protected by multiple security systems." "And Captain, there's something else. The self-destruct countdown has already started." "What? How long do we have?" 45 minutes. Someone at Council headquarters must have activated it when they realized the prisoners were escaping. Jack stared at the countdown timer on the screen. The Council would rather destroy the evidence of their crimes than let the prisoners escape. They were willing to murder 47,000 beings to protect their secrets. "Kevin, tell all the prisoners. They have 45 minutes to get off this facility or they're all dead." "Captain, there aren't enough ships for everyone." "The Council only keeps a few transport vessels here." Jack thought quickly. They needed to evacuate thousands of prisoners, but they only had a handful of ships. Many of the prisoners would die unless they could find another solution. "Danny, can you stop the self-destruct?" "I'm trying, but I need more time." "The Council built this system to be impossible to shut down," Lisa called out from the doorway. "Guards coming!" "A lot of them." Jack grabbed his weapon and moved to the door. A squad of Council guards was running toward the control room, carrying heavy energy weapons. They had finally figured out what Jack's team was really trying to do. "Danny, how much more time do you need?" "At least 20 minutes to break through their security systems. We'll hold them off." Jack and Lisa took positions on either side of the doorway. The Council guards opened fire as soon as they saw them. Energy bolts sizzled through the air and burned holes in the walls. Jack returned fire, trying to keep the guards away from the control room. But he knew they were outnumbered and outgunned. They couldn't hold this position for 20 minutes. "Kevin, we need help down here. The prisoners are trying to reach you, but they're fighting guards throughout the facility. Dr. Green is still 10 minutes away." Jack ducked as another energy bolt missed his head by inches. The guards were getting closer, and his team was running out of ammunition. Then he heard something that gave him hope. The sound of running footsteps coming from the other direction. Maya Torres appeared at the end of the corridor, leading a group of human and alien prisoners. They were armed with weapons taken from defeated guards. "Captain Morrison," Maya shouted, "we're here to help." The prisoners opened fire on the Council guards, catching them between two groups of enemies. The guards found themselves outflanked and outnumbered. Within minutes, the corridor was clear. "Maya, how many prisoners have escaped?" "About half the facility. But Captain, we know about the self-destruct. We're evacuating everyone we can, but there aren't enough ships." Jack looked at the countdown timer, 28 minutes remaining. Even if Danny could stop the self-destruct, they still needed to Get everyone off the facility. What about the council ships? Can we capture more of them? Dr. Green and her team are working on it. They've taken control of the communications center, and they're trying to override the ship security systems. Jack felt a spark of hope. If they could capture enough council ships, they might be able to evacuate everyone. But they were running out of time. Danny, status on the self-destruct? I'm breaking through their final security layer. But Captain, even if I stop it, the council fleet is on its way. We detected ships jumping into the system 5 minutes ago. Jack realized their situation had just gotten much worse. Even if they saved the prisoners from the self-destruct, they would still have to fight the entire council fleet. How long until the fleet arrives? Maybe an hour. Then we better move fast. Maya, organize the evacuation. Get every prisoner onto every available ship. Kevin. Jack Morrison watched the countdown timer tick down to 15 minutes. Around him, the control room buzzed with desperate activity as Danny worked to stop the self-destruct system. The sounds of battle echoed through the facility as prisoners fought to escape their cells and reach the ships. Danny, please tell me you're close to breaking through. Almost there, Captain. But this system is designed to be nearly impossible to stop. The council really didn't want anyone shutting this down. Maya Torres burst into the control room with updates from the evacuation. We've got 12 council ships under prisoner control now. Dr. Green managed to override their security systems. But we still have over 20,000 prisoners who need to get off this facility. Jack felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Every second that passed meant more lives at risk. How many people can those ships carry? Maybe 15,000 if we pack them in tight. But Captain, that still leaves thousands of prisoners behind. Jack stared at the monitors showing prisoners running through the corridors toward the ship bays. Men, women, and children from dozens of different species, all fighting for their lives against an enemy that would rather kill them than let them. Go free. Kevin, status on the data transmission? I'm broadcasting everything we found to rebel networks across the galaxy. The evidence of the Council's crimes is reaching every inhabited system. People are going to know what really happened here. Jack nodded. Even if they didn't all survive, the truth would live on. The galaxy would know that the Council was not the benevolent government they claimed to be. Captain, Danny shouted suddenly. I've broken through the final security layer. I can see the self-destruct program now. Can you stop it? I'm trying, but it's more complex than I thought. The Council has multiple triggers built into the system. I shut down one, and another one activates. Jack looked at the countdown timer. 10 minutes remaining. At this rate, they would run out of time before Danny could stop all the triggers. What if we don't try to stop it? Jack said suddenly. Everyone in the room looked at him. Captain? Maya asked. What if we let it explode, but we use the explosion to our advantage? Danny looked confused. I don't understand. Jack moved to the navigation console and pulled up a star chart of the local system. Look at where we are. This facility is orbiting a dying star. If we time the explosion right, we could use it to destroy the incoming Council fleet. That's crazy, Lisa said over the comm system. We'd have to stay here until the last minute. One mistake and we all die. Jack studied the tactical situation. The Council fleet was approaching fast, with enough firepower to destroy any escaping ships. But if the prison facility exploded at just the right moment, the blast could cripple or destroy the entire fleet. Maya, how long do you need to finish the evacuation? At least 20 minutes. We're moving as fast as we can, but there are still thousands of prisoners in the deep levels. Jack made his decision. Danny, stop trying to shut down the self-destruct. Instead, I want you to reprogram it. Make it explode when I give the signal. Captain, that's incredibly dangerous. If we miscalculate the timing, everyone dies. If we don't try this, the Council fleet will hunt down and destroy every escape ship. At least this way, some of us have a chance. Danny reluctantly began working on reprogramming the self-destruct system. Jack turned to Maya. Get word to all the ship commanders. They need to be ready to jump to hyperspace the moment I give the signal. What about your ship? How will you escape? Jack looked at his team. Kevin was still at the communications station on their ship. Danny and Lisa were here with him. We'll have to make a run for it at the last second. Maya grabbed Jack's arm. Captain, there has to be another way. There is no other way. The council chose to murder innocent people rather than face justice. Now they're going to pay the price for that choice. For the next 10 minutes, Jack coordinated the evacuation while Danny worked to reprogram the explosion. The escape ships were filling with prisoners as fast as possible. Children cried as they were separated from parents in different sectors. Elderly prisoners moved slowly through corridors filled with smoke and debris. Kevin's status on the council fleet? They'll be in weapons range in 15 minutes. Captain, they're not just sending a few ships. This is a major fleet with enough firepower to destroy a planet. Jack felt grim satisfaction. The council was scared. They were sending everything they had to stop the escaped prisoners from reaching the galaxy with evidence of their crimes. Danny, how much longer do you need? Almost finished? But Captain, I need to warn you about something. When this facility explodes, it's going to be big, really big. The explosion will be visible from dozens of star systems. Good. Let the whole galaxy see what happens when tyrants try to murder innocent people. Dr. Rachel Green's voice came over the comm system. Captain Morrison, this is Dr. Green. We've evacuated all the prisoners we can reach. Some sectors are cut off by fires and structural damage. We estimate about 3,000 prisoners are still trapped. Jack felt sick. 3,000 people were going to die because they couldn't reach them in time. How long would it take to reach them? At least an hour. The passages are blocked and we'd have to cut through multiple barriers. Jack looked at the tactical display. The council fleet would arrive long before they could rescue those prisoners. And even if they could reach them, there weren't enough ships to carry everyone. Dr. Green, get your ships ready to jump to hyperspace. We're out of time. Captain, we can't just leave those people behind. We don't have a choice. The council made sure of that when they started this countdown. Jack turned to Danny. Is the reprogramming finished? Yes, Captain. The explosion will trigger when you activate this control. But once you do, we'll have maybe 2 minutes to get to our ship and escape. Jack studied the monitor showing the approaching council fleet. Massive warships bristling with weapons, moving in perfect formation toward the prison facility. They expected to find a few escaped prisoners in stolen ships. Instead, they were about to fly into a trap. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. Prepare for immediate hyperspace jump on my signal. Do not wait for us. Maya looked at him with tears in her eyes. Captain, it's been an honor serving with you. Jack shook her hand. Take care of those prisoners, Maya. Make sure they get home safely. Maya and the other rescued prisoners ran toward the escape ships. Jack watched them go, knowing he might never see them again. Lisa, get back to our ship and prepare for emergency departure. Danny, you stay with me until the last second. Captain, I'm not leaving you here alone. That's an order, Danny. Someone needs to get this information back to Earth. Lisa's voice came over the comm. Captain, I can see the council fleet on sensors. They're almost in weapons range. Jack waited until he saw the last escape ship leaving the facility. Thousands of freed prisoners were now racing toward safety, carrying the truth about the council's crimes to every corner of the galaxy. All ships have cleared the facility, Kevin reported. Captain, you need to get out of there now. Jack looked at the control that would trigger the explosion. Once he pressed it, there would be no going back. The facility would explode, taking the council fleet with it, but it would also destroy any evidence that remained in the facility's computers. Kevin, did you transmit all the data files? Everything we could copy. The galaxy will know what the council did here. Jack pressed the control. Immediately, warning alarms began screaming throughout the facility. The countdown timer reset to 2 minutes. Jack and Danny ran toward their ship. As the facility began shaking apart around them, they reached their ship just as the first council ships entered weapons range. Jack threw himself into the pilot's seat and started the engines. Kevin, prepare for emergency hyperspace jump. Council ships are firing on the escape vessels, Lisa reported. Some of our ships are taking damage. Jack launched their ship from the facility just as the Council fleet moved into position around the prison. The Council commanders were so focused on the escaping ships that they didn't notice the countdown reaching its final seconds. All ships, jump now! Jack shouted into his communicator. The escape ships disappeared into hyperspace just as the prison facility exploded. The blast was enormous, a ball of fire that expanded outward faster than light. The Council fleet, caught at close range, was completely destroyed in seconds. Jack watched the explosion through his ship's rear sensors as they jumped to hyperspace. The facility, the Council fleet, and all evidence of the prison were gone. But the prisoners were free, and the truth about the Council's crimes was spreading across the galaxy. "Captain," Kevin said quietly, "we did it. We actually did it." Jack leaned back in his chair, exhausted but satisfied. They had saved over 40,000 lives and exposed the Council's crimes to the galaxy. The prisoners would return to their homeworlds with stories of what had happened to them. Some would join resistance movements. Others would warn their governments about the Council's true nature. The spark that the Council had feared was now spreading across the galaxy. Free-thinking beings were uniting against tyranny. Inspired by the courage of those who had refused to be broken, Jack set course for Earth, knowing that the war was just beginning. But for the first time since discovering the prison, he felt hope.